Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. What an absolute pleasure it is to be back here at Rising Bharat. Thank you so much for being an incredible audience here, and we look forward to engaging with you on an issue that is occupying a lot of mind space and clearly generating a lot of headlines. I have a fabulous panel here with me this afternoon to talk about the trajectory that we are likely to see. It has been a record-breaking year for the Indian capital markets. To start with, we've seen the democratization of the Indian capital markets. The number of demat accounts in just the past 1 year up 34%. We've seen India emerge as one of the best performing markets in the world. We've seen record numbers in terms of mutual funds, asset under management. Women are now participating in the Indian capital markets like never before. But to tell us what the road ahead looks like, what we can expect for India, for the Indian economy, and for the Indian markets, without further ado, I'm going to start the first round with 90 seconds each to my panelists here to give us their take on what they believe is the bull case for India. Ramesh Damani, veteran investor, you've of course been bullish on the Indian markets for very, very long. And Ramesh, I just want to, for the benefit of our audience here who are watching us online as well as here at the Taj Palace in Delhi, remind you of that event in 2014 where your good friend, the late Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, said, if you're underinvested in India, you're going to miss out on the mother of all bull markets. Ramesh Damani, 90 seconds, your time starts now on the bull case for India.
Yeah, thank you, Shireen. It's very interesting that I just came back from the land of the rising sun. So I'm coming back to the Rising Bharat right now. And the very instructive story to understand about what's happened in Japan. In 1964, when India last won the Olympic gold medal cleanly, with the fair competition, was in Tokyo, the Nikkei was at 1,000. Over the next 25 years, it climbed from 1,000 to 40,000 in yen terms. Even dollar terms, it actually went to 100,000. So it had the mother of all bull runs in Japan. And I think Rakesh and me, we're kind of stock market creatures. We believe that India is on a similar bull run. Like Japan went from a third world country to the second largest economy in the world. Companies that were unknown in Japan in 64, Sony, Hitachi, Honda, became household names. I think, and maybe I hope I'm right, that India is on a similar trajectory. And what is powering this bull market in India? Every bull market has a thesis. What powers the bull market? I think what is powering this bull market is the growth of the great Indian middle class. I think finally we're having a great Indian middle class. People have a bit of extra money to save, extra money to invest. So you're seeing that coming through in the demat accounts, seeing through in the domestic money inflows. So I think this is a long-term story. I don't think, as my friend Rakesh would say, always be bullish on this country. And the volatility that we're seeing right now is more like a winter squall. It'll pass by, but people who stand still will end up making a lot of money.
Well, speaking of making a lot of money, and since we are talking about Rakesh and his predictions as well, Ramesh, you were in that room when he said that the Nifty at 1 lakh by 2030. In fact, on an occasion he had said 1 lakh 25, but then he scaled it back. So 1 lakh by 2030?
That seems a bit of a stretch, but the Sensex will get there.
The Sensex will get there. Ashish, let me come to you now. The bull case for India, 90 seconds.
We've just come out with a big report, India's march onto the global stage. We are talking about, I think, the economy itself touching about $5 trillion by 2027, the market cap reaching about $10 trillion by 2030. I don't think any other country can talk about so many things coming together, whether it's an under-leveraged economy, capex cycle, both government and private sector, whether it's the demographic dividend that we are talking about, the rising middle class that Ramesh just talked about. I think it's a lot more parallel to also what the US went through in the 80s, in terms of working population, savings habit. As you have more macro stability, lower inflation, the average saver tends to invest more in equities. And I think that's the biggest delta. One statistic that I think cannot be underappreciated at all is even after all these years of demat accounts going up, equity savings being there, the equity household savings is still about 5% of total savings, right? Gold is 16, so we have a long, long way to go. And we are not even counting when the FIIs come back. So I think can't get more bullish than this.
When do you see the return of the FIIs?
I think it started a bit last year with a couple of large guys putting in sizable bets. I think a lot more will follow. If I'm not wrong, I think so far the India investments have been driven by EM funds taking disproportionate bets on India. I think the next 5 years will be about global funds stepping up big ticket investments into Indian equity.
Well, I'll get you to elaborate more on that in just a second. But Shweta, let me talk to you about what we are seeing as far as the private equity mood is concerned. And the mood has been buoyant over the last few years, including for Advent specifically. You're looking to utilize another $5 to $10 billion of your capital in India over the next few years. Your bull case for India?
So I believe India is not a story of 1 year or 2 years. I think it's a multi-decade growth story from here on, right? I think it'll be a pity if we don't capitalize on it, because we literally have, all flags are green at this point in time. So if you look at some things that both Ramesh and Ashish spoke about, right, our demographic profile, right, we have the largest probably working population of 900 million across any geography across the globe, right? And that just lends itself to a large consumption story for India. So that is, I would say, one big positive. Government capex cycle, I think, is going to propel the economy a lot in terms of growth. And lastly, the one thing that we didn't talk about so far was just the whole policy framework in India, right? And that has been so supportive, starting with reducing the corporate tax rate a few years back, or the bankruptcy law, GST. All of these is just providing the inherent infrastructure, underlying infrastructure for corporate India to really outperform the growth we are seeing anywhere else in the world, right? So for us and private equity, as you can see, everybody is really bullish on India, like Advent and like my global folks said, about $5 to $10 million a month back. I think last year the private equity investment in India was $40 billion.
Yeah.
It did peak in 21 at 70 billion. And I do see that peak coming back sooner than later, just given the whole buoyancy around India that we are seeing. Anywhere I go in the globe and meet our investors, meet our general partners, everybody's just talking about India rising and India
What's the number
shining.
one question that they ask you?
How much can you invest in India?
How much can we invest in
Yeah,
India, and where do we put that money to work?
Absolutely, absolutely.
I'll get you to respond to where you tell them that money should go to work. But Harsha, first of all, congratulations. Harsha is an investor in India's newest airline. They took their first flight yesterday. So ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause. And Ramesh Damani, also an investor.
He's the captain.
He's the captain. But Harsha, you know what they say, and I'm not going to go down that cliche of how do you get a billionaire to lose his billions, but that's really been the story as far as Indian aviation is concerned. You're being brave-hearted, aren't you?
Thank you, Shireen. I wish I got a penny for every time I heard that comment.
Which is why I didn't make it.
Yeah. But on that specific point, I will say that it's clear that India's problems needs Indian solutions. And we believe with the airline that that's what we're addressing. And in many other investments that me and my contemporaries are making, I think we're solving India's problems with Indian solutions. To answer your question about the bull case, I was reflecting on this a little while ago. And in the old days, the gap between our bull case and our bear case used to be a wide range in India. Today, we seem to be in a somewhat privileged position where the gap has narrowed significantly. And I'd say with some level of reliability and certainty, we know where we as a nation are going. I think Jefferies and many of the other analysts have published a lot of research on this topic. We should be the third largest economy by 2027. Our stock market has done well. Looks like it will continue to do well. And so I'd say the bull case is not altogether that different from the realistic case or even the bear case, in that India is looking to be good. Now, on a slightly related point, what do all of us want as citizens and residents? We want safety for us, ourselves and our families. We want political stability, and we want that political stability to be accompanied by direction from the government in terms of where we as citizens can get to and businesses can get to. And the third thing is we want economic prosperity. In the old days, those three things used to be available elsewhere. We used to look around the world and say, that's in a first world country, not our country. Today, the India that we're living in today has those three things. And as we look around the world, we kind of look back home and say, like all of us in this room, things are better over here. So I'd say that that's the realistic case.
That is the realistic case, and that's the big change that is driving the investment psyche and the investment cycle as well. But Ramesh, you know, to the changes that Shweta also brought up, and all of you have alluded to, the structural changes that have happened. One of the calls that you made a few years ago, in fact, was as far as the PSU stocks were concerned, and what a rally we've seen as far as the PSU stocks. In fact, I don't think we would have ever imagined that we would have seen the Prime Minister address the rally that we've seen in PSU stocks in Parliament. Ramesh Damani, from here on, you know, given where valuations are, given the structural reform story, given economic stability, policy stability, so on and so forth, is that a bet that you continue to make?
Yeah, I feel, Shireen, like I'm on the Bazaar show in the morning at 9 o'clock. That's what they typically would ask me. But to answer your question, every bull market has leadership. So the 2000 bull market, for example, was led by the technology stocks in India, which saw the huge technology revolution taking place in India. I think what this bull market is partially being led by the PSU stocks, and they're saying that the level of corporate governance has improved in these stocks, that we no longer have the leakage, we no longer have the phone banking that India was so famous for in the prior bull market. So this sector, this PSU sector, will continue to lead this bull market higher. Now, people sometimes say there's a bubble going on or there's a froth going on, and they will correct, as all good bull markets have corrections in a period of time. But I think the eventuality, these prices will be significantly higher than they're even today. And the reason for it is twofold. One, of course, the PSUs are the leading edge of the capex spend. The government is using infrastructure spend, defense spend, railway spend as a leading edge for capex. And plus the corporate governance is improved. And you're swinging the pendulum from ridiculously cheap to now probably overvalued at some point in time. But right now, they're good buys, even across the PSU sector.
You know, you talked about bubbles, Ramesh, and you know, there is a debate at this point in time whether in some parts of the market, some pockets of the market, we are now entering bubble territory. What's your take, especially as far as the small and mid-cap space is concerned?
You know, there always froth in the market, and that corrects itself. Market is correcting. For example, there's some froth in the best private sector bank in India. It hasn't performed for 3 years. So the froth gets taken care of the market. I don't believe we're in bubble territory. People from Jamie Dimon to Jim Rogers have been calling for a bubble in American markets for the last 5 years, and the market keeps surprising them. NVIDIA becomes such a powerful company. I don't believe that's a bubblish. There is froth. Market is taking care of that. And, you know, it's what the wise words were said to us when we first entered the market. Caveat emptor, buyer beware. We need, if you're going to put our money, we're going to put a wallet on the stocks, we should be careful about what we are buying. That is our job.